First order of business, the agenda for today. Nigel moves adopting the agenda for today's meeting. All those in favor? Carried. Minutes from the April 11th meeting. Any discussion, amendments? Dan moves approval of the minutes as presented for the April 11th, 2023 meeting. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, first, 10:15, we have Mr. Millington. Is Mr. Millington present or going to be joining us?
He will be joining via Zoom.
Okay.
He's not on yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so first of all, then we will have a look at the development applications reviewing. Any discussions, questions regarding that? No, nothing? Okay. Miscellaneous, let's go with the planner's report. Very brief planner's report. Any discussion regarding the planner's report? Come on, we got to talk about something.
If you like, Mr. Chairman, I can just draw the MPC's attention to the first bullet under miscellaneous. And at the last council meeting, council directed for us to bring back potential amendments to the confined feeding operation setbacks in our municipal development plan. So we anticipate that'll be coming back to the next upcoming meeting here next week for council to give us further direction.
Okay.
So the new municipal development plan included a required, a mandatory 3.2 kilometer setback from hamlet boundaries, and that's in order to protect the future expansion of residential growth. So there's a concern that's been brought forward in regards to that setback, and so we'll be looking at it next week. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Anything else? Any questions?
I'll see you next week.
Well, what's with the right of entry agreements? What's that? Can you describe that?
Yeah, so what happens is in certain primarily subdivisions, desert bloom is very common. We have individuals that are wanting to install in-ground pools. And the problem is that there's not enough area between the edge of the home to the property line for them to fit equipment and such things in. So what happens is they're requesting to cross the county's ditch. So Range Road 60A is a good example to access through the rear of the property. And so we're looking at an agreement that would include also a provision for security. So in the event that there's any damage, it goes back onto the developer to recuperate and fix that damage. So just something more formal. So it's currently under review right now, and hopefully we'll have something finalized soon.
Okay. So it's just right of entry over at county lines. You're not attempting to. Any other questions? I'll accept a motion for the. Lloyd moves approval of the planner's report as presented. All those in favor? Carried. And the PowerPoint presentation, there's not that many slides, but it's probably going to take us 15 or 20 minutes, right? So I think we'll just kind of not throw that in right now. Sir, are you, which application are you here for?
For the trailer, RV trailer application for
Okay, okay, you're Mr. McPherson?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we could potentially look at the subdivision time extension request. I don't believe that Mr. Briel was attending, right? No.
Mr. Bro's not going to be here? Okay, all right, let's thank you. That's a good suggestion. Okay, let's deal with 22 CY06, Paul Bro, time extension request.
Yeah, so Mr. Briel was granted subdivision approval back in 2022. He has complied with all of the conditions of his subdivision approval, and the endorsement of the subdivision to be sent to land titles is imminent. However, there has been a mix-up in a land titles transfer. The portion that you see there between Highway 3 and the road plan, the little triangular portion to be consolidated, that was inadvertently transferred to a party that it was not intended to be transferred to. So they have to go through paperwork to correct that, and we need time to work with their surveyor to do so. So that's the need for the time extension.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the time extension?
He's done everything else.
You want this one, Amanda? Sure. All right, so Amanda moves approval of the time extension request for 22 CY06. All those in favor? Carried. Now 5 minutes. Anything else? Do you have anything else, Kayleen, for 5 minutes?
Why don't you just skip over the McPherson and then come back?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Mr. Millington, again, will be Zooming, so. Okay, well, yeah, let's, Mr. McPherson, why don't we not take any more of your day up? Come on up and take one of the chairs, please. Yeah, please. So there's a speaker in front of you, and you just press the red button, or the button to talk, right? Up, is it red or green or blue or something? All right. Mine's red, it's the power button.
Oh, boy.
Okay. All right. Okay, so this is development application 23/103, Mr. McPherson. Aaron, would you want to take this one away, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is to allow an on-site RV to be used for caretaking purposes at a restaurant that's continuing its use. The applicant has submitted a development application to the MPC for MPC's consideration for a caretaker residence. The applicant wishes to live on site in a travel trailer. The wheels and hitch will be removed and skirting will be placed around the trailer. The reason for living on the site would be for caretaker security purpose, which is permitted in the HC district. There's inadequate space inside the existing restaurant building to accommodate a living space and an office. The hours of operation, the proposed hours of operation for the restaurant are between 5 a.m. and 2 a.m. Alcohol is proposed to be served between 10:30 and 2 a.m. as per Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis regulations. The site was previously used in the past as a restaurant. Previously, it was called the Boar's Nest Restaurant, and the applicant is proposing to continue the use. The RV is needed basically, the applicant will be cooking barbecued meat and similar things that need to be monitored 24 hours. So the RV is needed for the continued operation of the restaurant and to ensure that the restaurant remains viable, to ensure that the food is cooked properly. The RV is brand new. And its appearance is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The majority of the homes surrounding this restaurant, especially to the north and to the west and to the rear, they're manufactured homes. And the RV looks similar or even better than a lot of them. The applicant proposes to reside in the RV year-round, and the RV is rated for winter use. Waste removal will be done through a local septic management company, and water will be hauled in. The RV has a 120-gallon tank and two 60-gallon gray water tanks and a 55-gallon black water tank. The proposed RV will be located at the far southwest corner of the lot. Existing parking for the restaurant, which is located closer to the building, will not be impacted by the siting of this RV. The RV has various, it's been upgraded to be compatible with winter weather. So, under section 12.16.1 of the land use bylaw, this section does not allow the use of an RV as a permanent dwelling. The applicant has stated that the RV has been upgraded for winter use. Information, okay, yeah, it can be used for winter use. And the applicant has engaged adjacent property owners who are supportive of the restaurant and the use of the RV as a caretaker residence. I believe each of you have a copy of a drawing or a map with yellow dots on it, and those show locations of people who signed a form saying that they were supportive of the proposed use. In the 7 persons ASP, it shows the site as being for commercial use, and the applicant is proposing to continue commercial use on this site. The continuing use of the site as a restaurant will meet the goals and objectives of the 7 persons ASP and ensure that the hamlet of 7 persons remains a vibrant and sustainable community. So under option 1, we're recommending approval with a standard set of conditions, except for one thing I wanted MPC to look at was the hours of operation, which currently are proposed to be between 5 a.m. and 2 a.m. We also have a condition regarding skirting of the trailer to be completed within 60 days of the issuance of development permit. And our option 2 is to refuse the permit because the RV, it's contradictory to section 12.16.1 of the land use bylaw. So I do have some photographs of the site. This is the front of the restaurant showing where the existing parking would be, the existing signage. The RV will be in the far rear corner of the site. You can go to the next picture. Okay, so I'm looking down Drinnell Street to the east. The next picture, down to the west. So there's a lot of mobile homes and also RVs parked on this road. This is in the rear of the restaurant. This shows a secondary entry-exit point that is existing. And this is a view of the northeast of the site. And this photo here, I'm basically standing where the RV is proposed to be situated, and I'm looking north. The interior of the restaurant is under construction, which is why you have the bin there with waste in it. South, we're looking towards where the proposed trailer or RV will be parked. And this is the adjacent site to the west, manufactured home. And this is north, more manufactured homes to the north. And here's the RV that is being proposed to be placed on the site. The RV is brand new. As I said, it's winterized. There's a waste management company that'll take waste away. Water will be hauled in. And this structure, I think, looks similar to other structures in the immediate area. It's basically it's brand new, and it doesn't look too different than what's in the area. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Aaron. Mr. McPherson, would you like to speak to your application at this point?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Aaron, for that. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time for me here today. I want to begin by saying I'm really excited here about being a business owner in 7 persons. Reception I've had since I've arrived here February 22nd is just nothing short of exceptional. It seems everyone who have approached me are thrilled this business is opening again. I am doing things the right way to make the establishment clean, inside and out, safe, comfortable, and aesthetically pleasing for both my staff and my customers. I want to add, I will be building a small deck and privacy fence around the trailer. I will be running a power cable in a conduit underground across from the restaurant, as well as a separate conduit for internet to the trailer for my administration purposes. I have to set up my office in the trailer, so to speak. There won't be any exposed cables and such after I'm all done. I will be adding a gate from the alley for ease of access for septic service purposes, and I have engaged a local landscaping company to keep the yard and alley free of debris and the trees healthy. Any questions or concerns I have going forward, I will gladly be addressed, or will be gladly be addressed with the staff here at the Cypress County office. They have been a pleasure to work with and have helped me enormously. Thank you all for your considerations, and I'm open for questions.
Thanks, Mr. McPherson. First of all, thanks for investing in 7 persons. We really appreciate that, your business coming to our area, and we look forward to the operation of that business. One question I have, would you be opposed or are you able to connect to water and sewer from your directly instead of having?
It could happen at a considerable expense, I'm sure, but it is a self-contained trailer. The tanks, all the tanks are heated in that trailer too for the winterization aspect. I haven't really, I've considered that connecting to the water and sewer services, but it just seems that I have it in my mind that it would be prohibitively expensive for me to do that. So, but it is possible.
Do you intend on staying there permanently, like as your
Well,
permanent
until
home?
I get the business established, well established, I'm alone now. I do plan on retiring here, living here. My plans are I would like to get an acreage down the road or whatever. It's not going to be my permanent, lifelong ambition to live in a trailer, but I made it as comfortable as I can to get my business established, and once it's established and kind of run freely without any hiccups type of thing, then I plan on moving the trailer off the lot eventually down the road. I can't give a timeline when that's going to happen right now, so I just can't project that right now. So I'm thinking maybe 3 to 5 years, the trailer will be gone off the lot, eh?
Okay. We have a bit of a, I don't know if there's a previous history of applications for people to live in RVs and 7 persons. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay, I'll open the floor to discussion. Questions? Dan?
I don't have, like he said, there's been previous ones in here, so we got to watch what we do. Cause
Yeah, for sure, and I want to do everything right. I'm not pushing the button.
I probably wouldn't have as much problem if we put annual review on it, and that gives us a bit of a control on the long term.
Yeah, I think we have a bit of a dilemma because we need to make sure that we make decisions that are consistent and fair to everyone.
Yes.
So that's where we're struggling, personally, where I'm struggling a little bit with this application. I'd be very comfortable with it if you were to hook up to services, because then it is actually no different than any other small dwelling around it. For a lot of, you know what I'm saying? Then it becomes a permanent residence versus an RV. You know, the reason we have, for lots of reasons, we don't want permanent, residents being, mobile and not affixed to services. Go ahead.
I agree with that. I think because it's been so close to the last one, but the difference on these trailers that we're looking at is this one's actually made to be set up for all year round, and can be skirted in. Compares to the last one that we're looking at wasn't this style of trailer or this use of a trailer. It was more of a car hauler than it was a trailer. So as we're walking a thin line here, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, is this one's more adequate for the use that's been
Lloyd?
asked for.
Sorry, are you done? Yeah. Lloyd, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. It's all set up for winter. It's not like the last one. And the last one, if I remember correctly, had no intentions of building or a residence there. And there was lots of room at the other last year for that one. This doesn't look like there's a lot of room there. And he's not going to be a permanent residence. It's going to be 3 years or 4 years, but it's mainly going to be used as an office, and yeah, there'll be someone in there, but I'm for it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Mr. Chairman, this application, as was requested, will be reviewed every year. So if there's any changes, the permit can be altered, or if the trailer moves early, it can be, the permit could be terminated if the trailer doesn't need to be there very long. Another thing we could do would be to put a time limit on the permit, say 5 years. I don't know how much it would cost to attach this trailer to water and sewer, so I'm not too sure about going there with the condition, but I think putting a time limit and the annual review will be helpful for us to ensure that the RV is monitored and that it's not going to be there basically forever.
So I'd like your opinion now, Aaron. Do you think there's a significant difference in this application than the last one, in your opinion?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there's a huge difference. This RV is brand new. The previous RV was quite old. I did not feel comfortable with the information that was provided to me regarding the ability of the previous RV to be heated in the winter. So whereas this application, the RV is brand new. Aesthetically, it looks really good. And the applicant and also the company that sells the RVs have indicated that this RV is winter rated, and the applicant will not be at risk during cold temperatures in the winter. So this one here, I'm a lot more comfortable with. The customer has a plan for removing wastewater and that sort of thing, and electricity and getting water hauled in. So this applicant has a pretty good plan, I think. Thank you.
Can I just add something?
Go ahead, Mr. McPherson.
I haven't researched the cost for attaching the trailer to water and sewer services, but as per the permit application. This one. Oh, there you go. I would be more than willing to examine the costs and everything to do that, like say in the next year or whatever, and if it's viable, like I'm not saying viable, I can afford to do this stuff, but it's just I'm in a timeline to get revenue back into my life because I retired January 14th here, and I've got permission from the safety codes officer to start demolition and everything on the interior, hence the garbage bin there and everything, but I still haven't got my building permit approved yet. I've still got, well, a lot of things to do yet. I hope to get that in this week. But I'm more than willing to examine the cost of that and get back to the Cypress County too, and weigh that option, say within the next year, or even possibly this year. I know I have to address the sewer and the water line too as well, to make sure everything's clear. I want to do that on my own anyway. So I can examine, when I'm doing that, when I'm cleaning out the sewer line and everything and making sure the water line is all intact and good, I can review those costs or what they're going to cost and get back to the county with that option too as well. I'd be more than willing to connect if possible.
Okay, good. Amanda, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to clarify. It sounded like I wasn't here for the previous case, and it sounds like that there's a big difference between, like, this one is for economic development, and the previous case would not contribute to the economic development in terms of real estate growth and
Well, for clarity, and correct me if I'm wrong, the previous applicant was intending on running a business out of there.
okay.
That's correct, right? Aaron?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. The
Oh, okay, so it
previous
was too.
applicant was going to be running, basically it was a storage yard, and they'd be selling vehicles or motorcycles or whatever from the site occasionally. A very low intensity type of use, nowhere near as busy as a restaurant.
So, Mr. McPherson, would you be opposed to like a one-year permit because you're developing the property and you're actively, living there in that? I don't think anyone could say they're going to live long-term in that type of a development.
No, not at all. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all, Chairman.
That way, at the end of next year, then I think it's, we want to be consistent, number one, but we want to also develop the municipality. So we're kind of torn here, but I want to treat everybody the same. I mean, I want to make sure that we're being fair and equitable in all of our decisions. It's not always that. It's sometimes tough to do, but I mean, we have to look at each case individually. So to me, I would be supportive of it if it's a 1-year temporary measure till you get the site up and developed and going, and then we go from there. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess that if you're good with that,
Yes, I'm good with that.
and then if you're falling behind next year, you just make application and we can grant it next year if you,
Yeah, I mean, if you hook it up to water and sewer, I mean, I have nothing opposed to that being,
that's a house.
yeah, that's a house, I mean, really. So I have nothing.
I'll certainly explore everything here, and I want to go by the rules, so it's,
Well, I appreciate that.
and I really like 7 persons. It's really an awesome little community. I love it there.
So are you renaming the
It's going to be called The Cubicle,
cubicle?
QUE-BICKLE. That's, I want to have the barbecue aspect eventually. I just want to get the restaurant up and running again as it was before, only clean, modern, safe. And then I'm going to, next year, probably apply for another development application to add the barbecue aspect to the business.
Cool, sounds great. Okay, Dan moves it. Oh, sorry, Kayleen?
Mr. Chairman, before a motion is made, I think we should just clarify the conditions that we're attaching. So conditions 1 through 8 are the recommended conditions that Aaron had included. There was a motion or a recommendation to add annual review and then a time limited for 1 year. I think if we're limiting it to 1 year, there isn't a need for the annual review.
That's correct.
So just clarify that comes out.
So,
That's what I was gonna say, is the 1 year,
so your motion stands as amended?
as amended with number 9 for the 1 year.
1 year, okay. All right. So Dan moves approval of development application 23/103 with amended conditions as approved or as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, Mr. McPherson, your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks, and if no appeal is filed within 21 days, the development will become permanent or valid at that time. If you have any further questions, you can contact the development officer after today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
Thank you.
councilors. I appreciate that.
Welcome to our community. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Ingrid has gone to contact the applicant. He's not on Zoom yet.
Oh, okay. Good. I'm glad we didn't wait for him. So, who is doing the PowerPoint presentation? Kayleen, let's do it.
Let's do it. I just need someone to operate the clicker. The arrow button. Thanks, Becky. Okay, so we did this presentation probably about 2 years ago now. If anything, it's an opportunity to kind of go over some of the regulatory items. It's beneficial, I think, for some of the newer MPC members that joined us, and also a good refresher for those that we've had for a little while. So as we go through, there's going to be opportunity at the end for any questions, but hopefully as we go through some of this, there'll be some burning questions that you have to ask us. So try to think of them, and we'll go through them at the end. So what we like to go over today is the hierarchy of planning legislation, the role of the Planning Commission in decision-making, the process of subdivision and development, what happens when we receive an appeal on a subdivision or a development permit, and what have we been up to for the last year or so. So hierarchy of planning legislation, the items there that you see highlighted in orange are provincially regulated plans that the county's bylaws and policies are required to be in compliance with. So the Alberta Land Stewardship Act is at the top of the hierarchy, and as we kind of flow through the chart, each one of those plans that we see below it are required to be compliant with the one above it. So the Municipal Government Act is a residual of the Alberta Land Stewardship Act and is required to be in compliance. As we head down into the blue items, those are the bylaws that Council has actually adopted. So the IDP takes precedence over any municipal development plans that we have. The county currently has IDPs with 5 of our neighbors. We do not have one with County of 40 Mile. That was a joint agreement that we would not enter into one. That doesn't mean that we won't. We just don't have one at this time. The Municipal Development Plan, of course, was adopted here in 2022. It's the council's essentially strategic goals, what the municipality will look like over a 25-year time frame, so that's a very important document to have. The area structure plans are below, so that's essentially further detailed planning, and it allows us to be more development ready. So as Erin mentioned, in our development application for the hamlet of 7 persons, it sets out the goals and strategies and objectives of what council visions for the area, and that gives staff and the Planning Commission direction on where they wish to go. And of course, the land use bylaw, which is really the day-to-day document that the Planning Commission sees in terms of development permit considerations. That's kind of our Bible for what can and cannot happen on a parcel. So the role of the Planning Commission is dictated under Part 17 of the Municipal Government Act. And it's a requirement of all municipalities to adopt a bylaw that establishes both a subdivision authority and a development permit authority. Under our land use bylaw, council designates the authority to the municipal planner to act as a subdivision authority, and likewise to the Planning Commission is a subdivision authority as well. And council designates the authority of the development officer to act as a development authority and to administer and enforce the requirements of the land use bylaw. The MPC is authorized through the Planning Commission bylaw, which is bylaw 2020-17, and the land use bylaw to consider and decide on applications where additional discretion may be needed. Some of those circumstances that are common might be a request for variances. So we might see a request to reduce a setback. We might see a request for an oversized building. Applications where it's suspected that a subdivision or development may have a greater impact on the neighbors. We can refer those to the Planning Commission as well. Applications that are defined as a Class 2 discretionary use in our land use bylaw. So Ingrid, if you can just click through to the next slide. Perfect. So that's kind of a sample from our existing land use bylaw of the Agricultural District 2 land use district. And that kind of gives an idea of what we have divided up in from permitted uses. And then over on the right-hand side, we have our discretionary uses, which are both Class 1 and Class 2s. When we went through the land use bylaw revision, it did result in an extensive expansion of the uses that we have in all of our land use districts. We currently have, I think, 20 land use districts that are included within there. The hope is that it'll give us direction, both staff and MPC direction, and also give some, I guess, assurance to landowners what might be acceptable in those areas. So in terms of processes, we may see applications to amend the land use bylaw. So that occurs when we have an existing land use district that perhaps doesn't comply with an intended use for a development permit. So if somebody comes in wanting to operate a restaurant, and if the land is currently zoned as residential, we might need to look at a redistricting to a commercial use. So council approves those. They're approved by bylaw, and a public hearing is held. Similarly, if we have subdivision applications for a residential property, there might be a prerequisite before the subdivision comes in to rezone that land to country residential. So those are heard and decided upon by council. An application for subdivision might be required when we need to create a separate title to sell to another individual. It might be required to correct the encroachment of a building, maybe a fence line. There's different reasons. It might also be for financial or estate planning purposes, depending on the family. So we try to assist as much as we can. However, our municipal development plan, our IDPs are not structured to, I guess, correct estate planning for individuals. We have it so that it's kind of a blanket prerequisite across the entire county so that it's fair to all. Supporting policies and requirements for subdivisions are established by council through the municipal development plan, through the IDP, and through our area structure plans. And as mentioned, an application to amend the land use district may be required prior to a subdivision being considered. Applications for development under the land use bylaw, there's certain uses that are exempted from requiring a development permit. So things like farm buildings under 500 square feet are exempted as long as they comply with the setbacks. Things like play structures, corrals, fences, as long as they meet certain height requirements, don't require permits, amongst other things. Those are just a few examples. Uses that do require a development permit are required to obtain approval before they commence. Otherwise, there is the ability for the development officer to conduct enforcement under the land use bylaw. So that might be a couple of warning letters that are sent out, and we do have the ability to issue stop orders if it's something that is warranted. And the development officer and the MPC are designated by council to administer the land use bylaw. And as mentioned, the land use districts are divided into 3 land use categories. So permitted uses are essentially the uses under the land use bylaw that are by right. So as long as they comply with all aspects of the land use bylaw, there's no legal reason for us to decline those uses, so they must be approved. Class 1 discretionary uses, they are decided upon by the development officer, however, they still are subject to appeal by neighbors. One of the new additions to our land use bylaw now is discretionary uses get circulated to adjacent neighbors. So if there's a bordering property boundary, we send a letter to that neighbor to advise them that a discretionary application has been approved. And reason for that is essentially transparency, so that neighbors know what decisions are being made, and we give them the ability to voice their opinions on those things. So even though the development officer can decide on a Class 2 use, it doesn't restrict our ability to bring it forward to the MPC. So if it's something that maybe the development officer thinks might be, I guess, not well accepted by the general area, it can be brought forward to Planning Commission for a decision. And Class 2 uses, of course, are the decisions that are considered and decided upon by the Planning Commission. So all those have to be brought forward, and again are subject to appeal by neighbors. So next is the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board process. And the MGA outlines, I guess, kind of a variance test for when discretionary uses and subdivisions are being brought forward to be considered. So the 3 questions that are really asked is, would the proposed development or subdivision unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood? Would the proposed development or subdivision materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring properties? And does the development or subdivision conform with the use prescribed in the land use bylaw? So that's really the 3 variance tests that you need to consider. And Erin does a really good job in her reports of making sure that she highlights that for you when you're considering those applications. So under the MGA, a subdivision application is only appealable by certain parties. It's not appealable by adjacent landowners. So the decision may be appealed by the applicant, a government department if it's required to be referred. So that could be Alberta Transportation, could be the Alberta Energy Regulator, Alberta Environment, it could be any of those agencies. School board, and also a adjacent municipality. So if there's a subdivision within the tri-IDP that doesn't comply, either the city or the town of Redcliffe have the ability to appeal that decision. And an appeal on the decision of the subdivision is required to be received within 14 days of the date of decision. So there is a time limit on when an appeal can be lodged. The appeal process for development, any discretionary use is appealable by anyone that feels that they're negatively affected. So if it's somebody that's 2 miles down the road, if they've got concern about noise, dust, they have the ability to appeal. And that appeal has to be lodged within 21 days of the date of decision. So there is a bit of a longer period for development permits to be appealed. Permitted uses are not, again, appealable unless there is a section of the land use bylaw that was maybe misinterpreted, or if the land use bylaw was applied in error. Those would be grounds for an appeal of a permitted use. So I guess, again, in terms of where we are now, so throughout 2021 and 2022, Cypress County Council and Administration worked along V3 Consulting to bring forward a new municipal development plan and land use bylaw for consideration. The new MDP was adopted in October of 2021, and the new land use bylaw was adopted April 2022. The Government of Alberta passed Bill 48, the Red Tape Reduction Act. This is a big one, which directed municipalities to streamline processes and also to reduce timelines. And it also encompassed amendments to Part 17 of the MGA, which deals with planning and development. So one of the big ones was a notable change to remove the Municipal Government Board and transfer that role over to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. And they're designated under the MGA to listen to appeals relating to decisions of provincial regulators. So that's the board. If we deny an application for a wind turbine, it goes to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. So those amendments to the MGA were a result of the Red Tape Reduction Act being brought in. And Bill 48 also imposed legislated timelines for subdivision and development permit approvals. So the development officer, from the time that a development application is submitted, Aaron has 20 days to determine if the application is complete, whether we have all of the supporting information that's required to make a decision. It needs to be notified in writing, and then we have 40 days to make a decision on the permit application. And then the subdivision authority has 20 days to determine if the subdivision application is complete, and then 60 days to make a decision, unless there's been a time extension agreement that's been entered into. Planning and development staff continue to be steadily busy assisting in consultation, application, and construction of numerous wind, solar, transmission, and substation facility projects. We did have the onboarding of the industry coordinator that's in the back there now assisting Public Works, and I think that's been a fairly great help to take off some of the administrative workload in terms of correspondence back and forth with these developers and things like that. That's been really good. New residential construction is ongoing, primarily within the most recent phase of Desert Bloom and Eagle Ridge as well. Again, no multi-parcel country residential subdivisions in sight. It's kind of just status quo. And Council has approved budget, thank you Council, to complete an analysis of hamlet stormwater management and site coverage requirements in the land use bylaw. So we'll be doing up a request for proposal to retain a consultant to look at the site coverage requirements that we have. So essentially all of the hamlet districts are limited to a 30% site coverage. My understanding is that the hamlet of Dunmore was kind of the I guess the setting development that brought the site coverage requirements in. The 30% was based upon what the ditch capacity was for the hamlet. And so throughout all of our hamlets, 7 persons, Schuler, Urban, we have this 30% site coverage attached. And I think the big burning question is why, and is 30% the appropriate number that we should have? So council's granted funds for us to look at that, so that's exciting. And I think that's all I have. So it's a really quick run through, but like I said, it's an opportunity. If there's any questions that you have, bring them forward and we're happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions. It's good they're looking at the 30% coverage because, I mean, we're the driest climate in probably Western Canada, and we're the least intensive development. It doesn't make much sense, but anyways. I hope there's a watershed decision on there. Ba-boom. Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Lloyd, are you going to pass the test?
What test? What test are you taking, Lloyd?
That was good information, though. Bring everybody up.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's ever questions, even outside of meetings, if there's ever anything that you have questions on or process-wise, always feel free to come and ask any one of us, and we'll help you out.
Thank you, Keeleen. Very informative. I don't think we need a motion on that because it's just a presentation, right? Yeah, we don't need a motion. Okay. All right, land use amendments. We don't have anything to talk about there, do we?
Are we going to postpone Cody's? Because there's some talk on that one that we need to discuss.
Yeah, Cody's, I think, is going to be maybe a bit of discussion regarding that. Have you had any contact with Cody, Mr. Millington?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, he has arrived via Zoom.
Oh, good, okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Bring him on in.
Mr. Millington, are you online?
Yep, you betcha. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Millington. Okay, so the development application we have today before us is 23/102. Go ahead, Aaron, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposal is located at 45-11418 Eagle Butte Road. The proposal is to construct a 2,400 square foot shop, 40 by 60. And the applicant is requesting a size relaxation of 800 square feet. This is very similar to an application that I brought at the last meeting, where in the same subdivision, somebody asked for a variance for a large shop. The subject site is currently undergoing subdivision as 23 CY03. The subdivision was approved on March 14th. Usually, if a subdivision is underway, we usually wait until the subdivision is registered and endorsed before we will allow any development permits. However, in this instance, I spoke to the planners and endorsement is imminent. So it could be, most likely be endorsed in the very short term. The MGA allows MPC to provide variances if the proposal will not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood, interfere with the use, enjoyment, and value of neighboring parcels, and the proposed development conforms with the use prescribed for that land or building in the land use bylaw. Under land use bylaw 22/09, the maximum size for a shop is 1,600 square feet. And the applicant, as I said before, is requesting an 800 square foot variance on the size of the shop. The applicant is still below the 2,800 square foot maximum for all accessory buildings on the lot. The proposal meets all setback requirements. And another thing, the proposed shop is very similar to a lot of other shops in the subdivision. I do have one map that shows all the different, this one here. I think I showed this map to you last time. There's currently 19 shops that required variances, and this will be the 20th. And this one's 2,400 square feet, and the one we talked about last time was also, it was 2,100 square feet, actually. So very large shops are being frequently requested in this subdivision. So basically, due to the fact that we have a lot of large shops in this area, and the shop is pretty much identical to the proposed shop, to the existing shop to the north of this site, staff recommend approval of this shop based on the conditions that are listed in the report. And the DP specific condition with this one would be the approval of the 800 square foot variance. And also another condition that we would need, number 10, would be endorsement of the subdivision plan prior to commencement of construction. Conversely, MPC also has the option to refuse the application because it's bigger than it should be for the CR1 district. I think we have some site photographs. So this is a site looking south, and I'm standing where the proposed shop building will be. Next one here, looking southwest. And the next one, where the shop's going to be and the residence being built on the site. Residence was approved last year.
So it has started,
Yeah.
okay.
A little better now. So we're looking east now. And this, to the north, there's basically a 2,400-foot shop directly to the north. So it's pretty much identical to what the applicant is proposing on this site. Northwest. We're looking north. I mean, the house and the shop, as I said before, character-wise are very compatible. They look very similar to what's in the area. There's another view of the house under construction. And that's about it for photos. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. Mr. Millington, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
Yeah, you betcha. Nothing, I guess, out of the ordinary here, just looking for a building to, park in. That property to the north there, the pictures are showing of, that's my current home and property. I developed that one as well. So same use, just to park vehicles in, get things out of the elements. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor to discussion or motions.
Controversial when somebody else can.
Okay. Nigel?
So Aaron, there are two 2,400 buildings in that subdivision already? Is that, if I interpret that map
If
correctly?
we could take a look at that map. Through the chair, there's, I think I said there was 19 that are more than what the land use bylaw would allow. I'm just trying to see how many, 1, 2, 3. So based on, including the proposed shop, there's about three shops that are 2,400 square feet in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of them that are over 2,000 square feet.
Okay, one question. So, Mr. Millington, you are aware there's a 2,800 total square foot accessory building on this site, so you're pretty limited from here on in?
Yep, you betcha. I foresee, one more building going on this property that's going to be a 20 by 20, take me right up to that 2,800 square feet total, and that'll be it.
Sounds like you are well organized on this. Okay, go ahead, Nigel. Nigel moves approval. Okay, so Nigel moves approval of 23/102 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, Mr. Millington, your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there will now be a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of the permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 21 days. If there is not, no appeal is filed within 3 weeks from the date issued, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any further questions, you may contact the development officer to discuss them after today's meeting. Thank you.
Right on, thanks, everyone.
Go ahead, Kayleen.
I changed my mind on something.
Uh-oh.
I would just like a motion to accept for information on the MPC presentation, please.
All right.
Thank you.
So, Amanda, you need a motion. Amanda.
We can all refuse that.
Amanda moves approval of the MPC, the PowerPoint presentation for information as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Your information is now approved. You may bring more information next meeting.
We know what you want to learn.
Okay, I think we covered everything. So we talked about land use amendments. There's nothing to talk about there. Next meeting, June 13th. Okay, I adjourn the meeting.